absolutely love fishing for smallmouth bass. They're fun, they're aggressive, and almost anybody can catch them. That's what we're on the hunt for this week at Hawk Lake Lodge. Massive smallmouth bass. We're gonna have a great time.
This big fish adventure starts right now on the New Fly Fisher.
Ooh, that's a nice sized fish.
I will catch these all day.
That is what you're in for on this episode. Hey everybody, welcome to the New Fly Fisher Live. My name is Mark Melnick. We've got a very special show coming to you tonight. A very good friend of ours, a very good friend of the show is back at it. You'll know him as the 2019 International Lodge of the Year, Orvis Lodge of the Year. He's got a great spot. It's a wonderful place to catch smallmouth bass, trophy walleye, and giant pike. When we return, we're going to see the one and only Ted Putnam. And of course, I already aired that one, so let's move into a different video, shall we? Wouldn't you know? One of those days, I tell you. Absolutely. That's when you have two videos named number one. We begin this journey in Northern Ontario, where the rubber hits the road, literally. Hawk Lake Lodge, a drive-to multi-species fishery, has everything traveling anglers look for in a full-service fishing destination. Exclusive access to 20 lakes other than the main lake, catch and release trophy potential, incredible cuisine, and your own private cabin with personal secluded hot tub ensure your time on Hawk Lake is as near perfect as it can be. So what species can you expect at Hawk Lake? Smallmouth bass grow big here, with fish often eclipsing 20 inches, northern pike in the trophy category, and the potential for world record walleye. And the best part, all three species will readily eat flies. Welcome, Ted. How are you tonight? Thanks for joining us on the New Fly Fisher Live.
What's going on, Mark? Been a while. Good to catch up with you, buddy.
Yeah, last time we were together was June of last year. We were fishing. Actually, it was July. We were fishing summer patterns for smallmouth and walleye, weren't we?
Yeah, it was a little bit warmer than we're used to in July. And I think we were dealing with a COVID situation back then. Seems like ages ago.
Yeah, it seems like just yesterday or this morning. So how's your winter been, Ted? What have you been up to?
Oh, goodness. We're getting ready for the summer. Been busy hiring my staff. Getting ready for a whole bunch of upgrades. For those of us that followed the lodge last year, you saw all the cool things we were doing, from outside dining to new hummingbirds to this and that. So all us lodge owners do all winter long is just kind of get ready for next year and think about all the things we can change and upgrade, and talking to all my customers. And it's been a good time. I'm looking forward to get up there pretty soon, a couple of weeks.
So that's one of the things that's unique about Hawk Lake Lodge is that you are an owner that is hands-on every step of the way. You know, from menu choice to how cabins look to the furnishings. You and your wife really take a hands-on approach to the lodge. Talk to me a little bit about what the lodge was like when you first picked it up, when you first invested and first bought it, versus some of the changes that you've made as of today.
Oh, goodness. When I first bought the lodge, that was right after the 2008 recession. So things in general across the industry were a little more depressed, if you will, for lack of a better word. And I was a guest for many years. I loved it. And so when I walked in, it wasn't really a business. It was, gosh, I've got a fishing lodge. And if I was a guest, what do I want it to look like? And you've seen me have a good time. And so I took the concept of, just a communal hot tub, for example, to everybody has a private hot tub, or finding the best chefs in the world, or upgrading all the electronics, because I love my electronics when I'm walleye fishing or bass fishing in the spring. So I just decided to go all in. Forget the money part. I'll deal with money later, and really make it like my own personal lodge. So everything was just upgraded across the board. And gosh, I'm not even open and I'm still spending money. I mean, that's how into it I am.
What are your plans for this year?
Oh gosh, this year. So I just upgraded all the Humminbirds to G4s this year. I have a couple more boats on order. We found 2 new lakes last year, if you follow us on Facebook. So we're going to open up those lakes and cut trails into those lakes. We got a whole bunch of things. New carpets everywhere. I'm raring to go, and my staff is they're going to be right behind me. I can't wait.
Let's get real. Let's talk about the wine cellar. What improvements have you made to your wine cellar this year?
Oh, goodness. It's funny because last year we didn't really open. So my goal last year, along with my staff, was to pretty much kill the wine cellar. We did a great job. And so this year we're going to have to restock. That's one of the tough things about owning a lodge is, you've got this product. Don't want to go to waste. But yeah, we have a full wine cellar, 700 bottles. I like to drink my wine, as I know you do, Mark. So it's we have a lot of fun, that's for sure.
We do have a lot of fun. And that's one of the beauties about going to Hawk Lake Lodge is, I've often said it that when you step foot onto a property or a lodge or an outfitter or what have you, you automatically get a sense of the heartbeat of that place. And not unlike Abaco Lodge down when it was still operating before the hurricane down in the Bahamas, or Blackfly Lodge, or some of the other places that we've been, when you step foot at Hawk Lake Lodge, you feel like you're coming home, right? And it's a place where you feel like you can come to the dining room in bare feet and still be okay and have 5-star meals. It's a place where you take pride in actually going to it, because you feel like you're going home again. And congratulations to the entire team for being able to make people feel that way. That's a tough gig.
Yeah, it absolutely is. But gosh, we've had customers who've been there for over 30 years, and they're friends, they're family to me. It's really neat. You get to see them grow up with their kids and get married and lose their fathers and come up with spouses, and you experience the wilderness at arguably probably the most happy times we'll ever have in the West, in the Great North anyway. And I don't care if I never make another dime in this industry. You get to be part of that experience. And that's what I signed up for. I'll deal with the money later. It's just you're enveloped, and it's all right there. And, I've got friends all over the world now, and it's a wonderful ride. It really is.
Well, speaking from experience, every time I've been able to come up, it's generally been in the spring, save for last year. I've been up 4 times now. And every time I'm up there, we have Pat and Larry that are there, and they are the most wonderful people to have a cocktail with in front of the fire and all that stuff. So yeah, you know what? You've done a fantastic job. Good work.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. So let's get into a bit of the nitty-gritty of this all. Let's talk about the seasons on the fly when it comes to Hawk Lake Lodge and what people can expect from ice out all the way to when you put those final shutters up in the fall.
Okay, where do you want to start? Ice out?
Yeah, let's go to ice out.
Ice out. Ice out is great because everything is in pretty much like 6 feet of water. From pike, walleye, bass, and of course even lake trout. You can catch them off the docks. You catch them in shallows. So everything is catchable, which is great because once it gets hot, the lakers are 150 feet of water. They're gone. Big pike are gone. Everything's deeper. So that's actually really fun. Big streamers for the lakers. Any minnow patterns, they're great. So that's very early. The bass are a little bit deeper. They start to come shallow as they get ready for the spawn right after the walleye spawn. Walleye spawn typically 45 degrees, 46 degrees. Bass are high 50s. So within a 2, 3, 4 week period, you've got 2 different spawns going on, the walleye and the bass. And you're catching them all the way up to the spawn. And then afterward, there's a little hiatus, and then they get pretty crazy. And then they go down into their summer haunts, if you will. And then once you get into mid-June, late June, then you start getting into the hatches. So instead of the minnow hatches, which are typically the first thing to pop, and crayfish maybe, then you get actually hatches, big mayfly hatches. You get flying ant hatches. You get all sorts of fun things. So now the top water really starts to kick in late June, early July, all the way through August. And a lot of people think, gosh, in the heat of the summer, the top water isn't always that great. I would argue just the opposite. I've got a lot of my guests that'll fish in the heat of August, and it's nonstop top water. So top water, And then what happens is you start to get fall, which for Northern Ontario, fall is really early September where things start to chill out a little bit. But that's nice because remember all those shallow lake trout and walleye? Well, they all come shallow again. They all get their feed bags on. So now all of a sudden streamers are working once again because they're all coming a little bit shallower and you can get down to them. In the middle of the summer, you're not going walleye or lake trout fishing with a fly rod. It's pretty difficult. But now they're all shallow, especially in the evening. So it kind of goes up and down. And sort of the overarching principle is top water from mid to late June all the way into early September, which is, as a fly fisherman, it's all about top water. That's
it's money, right? It's totally money.
It's nirvana.
Yeah. But that's Hawk Lake, right? But you just don't offer fishing at Hawk Lake. You've got management rights to 22 different lakes that you can ATV to, that you can hike to, that you can boat to. Tell me a little bit about your portage program.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've said this in other shows. I mean, that's, as a guest, that's what I fell in love with. It's one thing going to a place and fishing the same body of water every day, but here we've got 18, 19, 20 other portage lakes. We're the only person on that lake, the only boat on that lake. So you go to a lake, you got the private lake for the entire day, and there's no public access to these lakes. So you get to mix it up. If I want to catch a million smallies, or I want to catch big pike, or even go perch or black crappie fishing or big pike, whatever it is, and you can mix it up. And the cool thing also about having options is if you get a weather system that comes in, a big north, south, east, west wind, if you're in a big body of water, say Rainy or Red or Lake of the Woods, you can get blown off that pretty easily. But all I do is I look at the patterns coming in and say, well, if it's coming in from the west, well, let's go to a north-south lake, right? So I give you protection. So it's not like you're stuck out in the middle of some lake and just getting blown off it. And that's also a nice thing, too, because if the weather comes in and you're on one lake, it can pretty much suck for a while. So we can mix it up and give you protection, get out of the weather, and still catch a bunch of fish.
That said, though, you also have a program in place where if you're going to XYZ Portage Lake on a Tuesday, that lake doesn't get touched again for X amount of, like, you've got a cyclical program that people can book lakes such that they're basically fishing brand new water.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, some of these outlakes are 3-4 miles long. Right. You couldn't fish that lake an entire week. So, I mean, they never get touched. They probably get fished 12 to 20 times a summer. And in this case, they're not going to be fished for 1 or even 2 years. Keep in mind, we're also 100% catch and release. So because of all of that, I mean, it's sort of, the gold standard. You're going to go out there and you got fresh water every day you go out.
Absolutely, which is perfect. So I was fortunate enough, not this last summer, but the summer before, to come visit you while we were shooting the new Fly Fisher and the Orvis Guide to Fly Fishing. And we had Tom Rosenbauer with us. And we had a lot of fun. It was early season. The ice was just out. We had a lot of fun trying to figure out these fish. I'm gonna show a video here of Tom understanding, finally figuring out the puzzle of how to be able to catch these smallies, not by change of flies, but by his actual retrieval. Check this out.
So we're fishing for pre-spawn, just spawning smallmouth. There's a few beds. We're going to stay away from the beds. We're not going to fish on the bed. So we're looking for fish, mainly females, the bigger females, that are a little bit deeper. So what I'm going to do is cast in toward the shallow, but not all the way into where the beds are. Let that fly sink. And when I first make the cast, I'm going to tighten up my line, because sometimes bass will take the fly as it drops, and you can often see that line straighten. There'll be a little bit of curl in the line, and if you see those curls straighten, that means a bass is taking it on the drop. And then I'm going to use fairly slow strips and give it plenty of time to drop in between. Don't worry about missing the strikes, because you will feel that tightness or see the line tighten. So I'm going to start out with really slow strips with a lot of pause in between, see if that works. As with all other kinds of fishing, if you're not catching fish, then you need to switch up your retrieves, try something different. So I'm using an intermediate line and a weighted fly. so that I can get deep if I need to. Yet with that intermediate slow sinking line, if I want to go in and fish the shallows, I still am not hanging bottom every time. And what you want to do is make sure that you keep your rod tip low to the water. We got a little bit of wind today, and if you keep your rod tip low to the water, you're going to keep that fly totally in control. You're not going to have a lot of slack blowing around in the wind, and you're also going to be able to see and feel those strikes a lot better. There's a fish. So what we've been doing is switching out retrieves. That's the first thing you want to try, is to switch out your retrieves. Try slow, try fast, try erratic, try whatever. This one, I picked up my pace and picked up this pretty nice smallmouth by picking up the pace, which I wouldn't think would work this time of year, but it worked. Took a dragon tail jig fly. There she goes. Bye-bye.
So Ted, one of the best parts of my summer fishing with Tom, my job was not only to help produce the Orvis Guide to Fly Fishing show and the new Fly Fisher, it was to be a sponge around the man.
Yeah.
To listen to everything that he says and all the experience that we can pull from Rosenbauer. And that was one of the biggest nuggets of information that I had gleaned from him over the summer was never change your fly first. Always change your retrieve. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about how that portrays with smallies at Hawk Lake and your pot lakes, as well as your trophy northern pike fishery as well.
Oh, goodness. You could almost say that with almost any species, because it really depends on, really what kind of mood they're in, right? Excuse me. If they're really aggressive, it doesn't really matter too much about their retrieve. But if they're finicky, well, then you got to have to sort of play to them. And that's just a great point. A lot of times people are way too fast across the board, whether you're spin fishing as well. Slow it down. I mean, sometimes even stop, and Colin, I'm sure, could talk about this, where, give them a chance to kind of digest what's going on, especially if they're a little off. A lot of times when fronts at the back end of a front, they're going to be off. So you're not ripping things through there. You're taking your time and you're seeing how they're reacting. The other reason why I like to encourage people to slow things down, because especially if you're streamer fishing subsurface and you're not on the top water, is that sometimes you're going so fast you're actually taking it out of the strike zone or the kill zone. You want to let it sink down a little bit. And some of my new customers, they're so excited and they're ripping it through the water. And I'm telling them, dude, I mean, that subsurface streamer is like 6 inches below the surface. You need to allow it to do its job so that you can catch some more fish. And people, count to 3, grab your cell phone, call mom, and then come back to it. And I find once you slow things down, that can really be very successful.
Well, not only slowing it down, but if you're fishing a streamer or you're fishing something that like a woolly bugger or something like that, it also is legal to tie on a dropper.
Oh, there you
go. Another fly, right? So we had this experience, and I'll show you the video in just a second, but we had an experience with Tom where we were struggling with streamers and woolly buggers and sort of creature type flies. And he said, you know what, I'm gonna take a little page from my trout fishing days, and I'm gonna drop an 18-inch dropper with, I think you either had a dragonfly nymph or like a Kaufman stone or something like that.
Sure.
And sure enough, that was the ticket. It slowed things down enough such that he was able to come tight with a fish. What do you think about that?
Oh, that's brilliant. Absolutely. And also gives you, 2 different shots to identify really what they're looking for. You may think you know what they're looking for. That's really not always the case.
Right. So let's take a look at this.
Oh, yeah. So I kind of switched it up. I finally stopped changing presentations because it just wasn't working. Finally went to different flies. I went to a black fly instead of a white fly. And then I hung a little nymph, actually a carp fly, on the back of my streamer. And this nice smallmouth took the nymph. So, you know, the nymph wouldn't get deep enough by itself. So I hung it behind a heavy streamer to get it down to where the smallmouths are.
Well, that's a good fish. Fat.
Looks like a female, isn't it? Took that nymph deep too. Sucked it right in there. Come here. There we go.
Well, everybody, I think our good friend Mark's having some technical difficulties. Ted, you still there with me?
Oh, we've upgraded from Mark to Colin. I'm very excited.
Well, that's not nice, but I appreciate you saying that. It's nice of you to lie. Mark, you back?
I'm back. Sorry about that.
Okay. Well, we'll get back to the eye candy. I'm out. You're
The issues of living in the country. Sorry about that, Ted.
Yeah.
But that's one of the crazy things about being able to fish for these fish like this is that if you know you really extend your knowledge of fly fishing, and the way that worked is that the streamer acted as the attractor. It caught the fish's attention.
Yep.
Right. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, there's a little morsel that I don't have to work for.
You there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, yeah. No, absolutely. And you got two presentations in one. And on that day, I remember fishing side by side with Tom. Fish are a little finicky, so you got to mix it up. And it worked out quite well. Sure.
Yeah. So as the spring moves on, you've got different lakes that present themselves very differently. You talked earlier about Hawk Lake fishing well on poppers in the spring or in late June, but really some of your back lakes don't behave that way at all, do they?
No, I mean, a lot of it has to do with water clarity and water temperature. Because one, that's going to drive where the fish are, but two, it's also going to potentially drive the hatches as well, right? You know, if you got a huge temperature differential, right, some things are going to be popping in one lake that they're not popping somewhere else. A great example is mayflies. Like just because we've got a big mayfly hatch going on at Hawk, which can be tough for the spin fishermen, but good for the fly fishermen and women, doesn't mean it's going to be happening anywhere else. So if you're looking for that hatch, and you think you missed it, well, you know, gosh, I could probably point you to another lake that's a little cooler and hasn't quite reached there yet, and you can kind of time it a little better. So you have options, which is kind of nice.
Right. So for those of you that are going to be traveling to Hawk Lake Lodge to fish, either this summer or next summer, you need to come well gunned. And I'm going to show another little video here in just a second that proves that you can. I mean, it was a remarkable day. We were in a lake called Cliff Lake, and it was a situation where we were able to catch fish with multiple presentations because we came well armed with things as small as prince nymphs and things as big as surface poppers.
Oh, yeah. So I kind of switched it up. I finally stopped.
Sorry, guys. Same video again. I'll see if I can find this one. Stand by. My apologies. It's gone. So basically what happened was we were in a situation where I was fishing in cliff with poppers, and a fish came up and whacked a popper. Tom was fishing in the bow of the boat with a streamer with a tiny little, tiny little prince nymph. And we actually had a double header on smallmouth bass because we had everything covered, right? So with respect to the lakes that you have, what are some of the fly patterns that you would recommend, Ted, that people bring to be able to do that, to cover the water column?
Okay, good question. And as a side note, Cliff Lake is our most shallowest lake, so that heats up first. So the Hawk Lake fishing could be really rough, could be freezing. Cliff Lake can be like 15 degrees warmer, and that's the best lake that we have in May and June. And then in July, it gets like bathtub hot. You don't want to fish Cliff Lake. Anyway, you always want to have top water. You always want to have poppers, because in the spring they're hitting poppers all day long, but in the summer, in the heat of the summer, you can use top water poppers, Sneaky Pete's, anything like that in the morning and at dusk. So they're still going to work, but they're just not going to work all day. So you got that covered. You always have top water no matter when you come. Secondly, then you want to go a little bit more subsurface. So clousers, that's going to work all the time. Clousers going to work a little bit better in the springtime when you have the first minnow hatches. Perch and Tulubi and Cisco are going to hatch first. So those are excellent. And then you want to go a little more subsurface. Now we're going to woolly buggers. You're going to leeches. Leeches start to pop out. Leeches are there from June to, let's say, August, when it gets so warm that they tend to disappear. And then finally, as you see right here, crayfish patterns. Smallmouth absolutely crush crayfish patterns. That is a go-to lure. And the heat of the summer, or even in June when the crayfish first start to come out, you can go subsurface, and you can catch pike, not lake trout, but certainly pike, bass, all day long on crayfish. That is a go-to lure, go-to bait right there. So as long as you have all of the water column kind of covered, from the top water to subsurface to even totally subsurface with the crayfish, as you're seeing right there, you're good. And you can use those throughout the entire year. It's not just, oh gosh, June, you're going to fish this way, because depending on, how warm the water is, and depending on time of day, you can fish top water 5 months a year, but it's just different times of the day and in different lakes. You can't go wrong with a clouser. You're going to catch every fish that swims in the lake with that fly right there.
Yeah, same with these murderch minnows. The perch patterns, that top pattern, which looks like a sucker pattern to me, they're absolutely deadly when it comes to both smallmouth bass and pike. They really are fun. Let's see if we have some questions here. What do you recommend from Wakey Wakey? What's the best smallmouth rig? I've heard anything from a 6 to an 8.
You want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go first. It depends on the size of the fly that you're throwing. It doesn't depend on the size of the fish, in my opinion. If you're throwing those big murderch minnows that get soggy, you want to go something as high as a 6 or a 7. If you're throwing, weighted or unweighted woolly buggers like a crystal flash, something. This has got a little bead head on it, but something like a little crystal flash bugger, that kind of thing. I'd throw a 6 or a 5. Murderch minnow, it gets wet, it gets a little sloppy. I'd go a 6 or a 7. And for any sort of topwater popper, this is a small little balsa wood concave little popper and fire tiger. I'd even consider throwing a 5 for that. It just depends on what you're throwing, but an 8 for that. If you're fishing for pike, yeah, I'd throw an 8 for sure all day long, because that's when size of fish does matter, right?
Yeah, the other thing to think about is what else is swimming around with the smallmouth, and that's just ask Colin this, right? You got a little 5 or 6 weight, you're throwing big streamers, but guess who else likes streamers? 40-inch pike love streamers. So if they're in the water too that you're also fishing, you're not going to have much of a chance with a 5 or 6 weight. You want to dial it up as well. So the first thing, as you said, Mark, you got to make sure you got to match the rod to the fly, not necessarily to the quarry. And then secondly, what else might I be catching besides a 3, 4, 5 pound smallmouth? If it's a 20-pound pike, well, then we probably need to think about that as well.
John Smalley. I went to Hawk Lake a few years ago. Cannot wait to go back.
Oh, did he make up that name? That's good. I like that.
All right, let's talk about what else have I got on here? Let's talk about moving into summertime. Things. Before we do that, springtime is one of my most fantastic, most favorite times to be able to come to Hawk Lake Lodge, because one of the things that's fantastic about fishing during the day and then coming in for dinner is that after dinner, you have the opportunity to take your boat out and go for some of these trophy walleye that Hawk Lake is so famous for. First of all, let's talk about your conservation philosophy when it comes to all the fish in the lake, specifically your walleye population.
When I bought the lodge 11 years ago, immediately we went to catch and release, and I've said that on 400 TV shows. People thought I was a little crazy, but the results speak for themselves. The last time we were open in 2019, we had 428 pluses. We're talking about walleye. We had over 220 30-inch walleye or larger, largest going 33 and a half inches. We realized you throw them back, they're going to get bigger. And that's across the board. There you go. Gosh, that was calling about 8 years ago, and that was a 31-inch walleye. It was ginormous on a fly rod, by the way. So we strongly believe in catch and release, because honestly, if you want to catch a 30-inch walleye, there are not too many places in the country that you can go where you can get at them pretty consistently. You come in June, I can almost guarantee you will see a 30-inch walleye. It's up to you to land it, but they're everywhere. They're ubiquitous. I mean, I'm sure Mark could tell your story
I'm going to
30 that you caught, but they're all over the place. So we throw everything back. It doesn't matter what the species. We also do shore lunches. I'll give you fresh fish, but come on in and we'll throw a steak on the grill for you, and we'll leave the fish for another day.
Right. So when fishing walleye, Ted, you introduced us to a new technique for fishing these walleye that is absolutely deadly. So what we're fishing is a 6 or 7 weight fly rod with a full sinking, fast sinking line, right? And what Ted has instructed us to do is to put on a straight shot leader of, what was it, 8 pound or 12 pound?
Probably 12, because they've got teeth.
12 pound.
Yeah.
12 pound leader, straight shot, 4 feet of it at the absolute maximum. So a very short leader, and then tie on a small black leech pattern of any kind, unweighted. But
That's
the trick
is unweighted. Yes.
Unweighted. But the trick is to juice it up with floatant. So what happens is your fly line sinks down, touches the bottom, but the floatant on this leech pattern causes it to raise up just, not more than a foot above the bottom, right in the walleye strike zone, and it's lights out. So here is an abridged version of what really went on.
Yeah.
When I was fortunate enough to catch and release what could have been, because we didn't document it, an actual IGFA world record walleye on fly.
Fish the day away and find ourselves back at Hawk Lake Lodge just in time for dinner. But our day isn't done yet on the water. Evening time is the right time to target walleye, big walleye, so we load up and head to the Narrows in search of giants with owner Ted Putnam. We fished for a bit, both Tom and I throwing 3-inch black dragon tails, and of course, once it got too dark for the cameras, the big fish ate.
Nice.
So one of the things that you can expect that you have a legitimate chance at when you come to Hawk Lake Lodge is to catch a trophy walleye. This fish just might qualify for an IGFA length world record. She taped out at 77.5 centimeters or 30.5 inches. It is the largest fish I've ever caught on fly, and it is a true pleasure to be able to let this big girl go so that she can make more of these trophy fish here at Hawk Lake Lodge. Let's let her go right now.
So the cool thing about that was, and I'll tell
You
the
gotta
story.
tell the story. Come on, tell the story.
Mind if I tell the story?
Yeah. Please.
So it was after dinner, and we had a couple of. So when you're done fishing, you go to happy hour, which is your appetizers and your drinks, and everybody sits around on the porch and talks about their day, and it's an absolute riot. It's what these fishing trips are all about. And then we we had a couple of frosty adult beverages at happy hour, and then we sat down for dinner and had a couple glasses of wine, and then we decided, hey, let's go walleye fishing. So Ted, being the guide, and John being our other guide who knew that we were going to go fishing that night, did not partake in happy hour, and we decided we were going to go walleye fishing. So I'm casting, and I reach down to grab a sip from my water bottle. And again, I've had a couple of drinks, and I'm feeling okay. And all of a sudden, what happened? I dropped my phone.
Yeah.
I dropped my phone because I was trying to see something on the phone, take a picture of a nightscape or something like that. I dropped the phone, and as I dropped the phone, I bent down to pick it up, and I swept the rod tip to go down and pick up the phone. And as I picked up the phone, the rod doubled over. Anyway, I ended up dropping the phone again, stepping on the phone, smashing the screen, and then was able to come tight by total fluke and total luck with a 31-inch world record walleye. It was crazy.
Classic. That was a lot of fun. God, that was fun.
But I'll never forget the look on your face, Ted, when those eyes came up and saw the lights from the camera, and it was just you said, you got a donkey here, man.
Yeah, no doubt. That's pretty cool. Not a lot of people fish for walleye in a fly rod, but you can do it as long as you can get down to where they are. They eat the same things everybody else eating. Absolutely.
Wakey, eggs and bakey. What leaders do you guys recommend for pike? Is it a standard mono or fluoro leader good enough for teeth? That's a great question, man. And I'm gonna let Ted go first, and then I'm gonna back it up.
Oh goodness, it's actually a Colin question. I mean, you'd think fluoro would be okay, but I would go standard mono. I really will. I mean, pike don't tend to be that finicky, so it's not like you need the fluoro advantage from a sight pattern, point of view, if you will. I think mono is just fine, but you two are the pike experts by far.
Yeah. So personally, I wouldn't use mono or fluoro. What I would do is go straight from my fly line to a short section of 30 to 40 pound mono, and then pare down to a 20-pound mono, another foot of that, and then I'd go right to the 20-pound knottable braid. Or knottable bite wire, not braid, but bite wire. That way, and I'd use probably 12 to 18 inches of that stuff. You don't need super heavy with big pike. You don't need super heavy knottable wire, because as pike get bigger, their teeth actually separate in their jaw, and there's more of an opportunity for that bite wire to actually lay right between the teeth against their gum line versus getting sheared off by things like hammer handles that have teeth that are just packed in together. I've seen with thick fluoro and thick mono, I've seen that line go between the teeth, and it's thick enough that it actually will grab hold and it will actually cut, even if it's like 80-pound mono. It's something that will definitely cut through. So I like the knottable braid or knottable bite wire. And it's, I mean, these fish are not leader shy in any way. So
no. Good question.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of the trophy bass that you've got at your lake. Some of these fish are absolute giants. That looks like a fantastic spring fish. Look at the colors on it, on a topwater popper.
Love the shirt.
That's a great shirt. Colin with that's a big fish, man.
That's not small.
That is not small. And it looks like it ate a leech too.
Sure does.
There's
my friend Jim.
Jim, hope you're well. Miss you, buddy. Mr. Spicer. Look how long that one is.
Look at the markings, beautiful markings, especially on the cheeks. So pretty.
Yeah, those tiger bars, right?
Just gorgeous. Oh.
That's a 19-inch. That's a 19-inch smallmouth. So for a fish that up that far north, like that's a well-aged fish.
Oh yeah. Another fatty.
William with another fat sack of fat. That's in Cliff. That's a good one from Cliff.
No, it's not. Oh yeah, could be Cliff. Could be Cliff.
I recognize the railway.
Also could be Viaduct too.
It is Viaduct. You're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. All right. So as we move, Ted, from spring into summer, things change. Let's take a quick look at what you need to do come summertime for summer patterns. How does that sound?
Sounds like a plan. You're going to show a video or are we going to talk?
I'm going to show a video, and hopefully it'll be the right one. Due to the hotter weather conditions during the day, it can take some trial and error to find out where in the water column the fish are suspended. Luckily, Liam and Jenna came prepared for these mid-summer patterns.
So Liam, can you tell me a little bit about what the bass are doing right now and what that means for us as anglers? Because I know that they're past their post-spawn, they're more into their summer tendencies and it's been really hot, but what exactly does that mean for the fish and how we approach fishing for them?
Midsummer, it's a little bit harder to find them because they're a little bit more transient. They're looking for comfortable water temperatures and or kind of following their bait around. But during the post-spawn, they try and get put on as much weight as they can. So then they'll be kind of close to where their spawning sites are, so they're kind of easy to find from structure. Whereas now they're more in their summertime mode where they've grouped up and kind of gone back to their schooling tendencies and started chasing these schools of bait fish like Cisco and perch. So we found that, especially during the summer, like the dog days, like it's been over 30 the last 2 weeks, that like really pumped up the water temperature, which would push the bait, the cooler water, like the thermocline, down deeper, which would in turn bring the smallmouth down deeper during the day, which kind of makes them more harder to access, whereas they'll come up as the water temperature cools in the night and into the morning.
So we've been waiting and waiting and waiting and we haven't seen really any action at all, nothing. And something's flipped. We've seen a whole bunch of fish come up and break the surface. I've tossed a streamer. I'm using Scotty McFly, and I'm actually going to have Liam toss a popper in with a floating line, see what they're gonna take, because we just watched a bass come up and crush a bug off the surface. So we might have some luck with top water as well if they're coming up for that. So we're gonna both flick a fly in the water and see if we can get them to take. There's a fish. Got him. Yes. Woo! That was freaking awesome. Okay, I'm gonna. This fish is fighting well too. This is probably some of my favorite fishing to do, is when you see them rising at this time of day. You can try and match what they're eating and go after them. It's so exciting being able to whip around the lake and chase them. I switched my fly and this one has more flash to it.
Oh yeah.
Oh. Oh my gosh. Okay. Ready? Come here, buddy.
Nice.
That is a beefy fish. Woo! Oh, that's a beautiful, beautiful fish. That's awesome. Thanks, Liam.
Absolutely.
So summertime is definitely a different monster, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And you can see so they were fishing kind of like the dusk. And they're like, well, where's the top water? What's going on? We're throwing streamers. We got poppers, trying to figure out exactly what they were doing. So you may think, well, gosh, you go fishing in the evening, it's all just going to be fish going crazy because all you do is watch videos. It's not always like that. You got to kind of figure it out and see where they're going to play so you can play right along with them.
See, what's cool about it though is that was the one night where topwater didn't play.
Right.
We were back in that little lake, and we had to switch to streamers. But what was cool is every other night that we went back there, it was just like seeing tarpon pushing on mullet. Yeah. I mean, these fish would get these bait fish rounded up, and it was just like boom, boom, boom. It was so much fun, Ted. It was just fantastic. Yeah. Tell me a little bit. We got to see Liam there. Liam's a fantastic guide. You guys are Orvis endorsed. Your guides are excellent. You've got Pat, you've got Jones. Tell me a little bit about your guide staff and what they bring to the table. And I hear that what's his name? Young Buck.
Young Buck?
What's his name? He fished with us last year with Tom.
Jones, Pat, nope.
Jeff Blum.
Jeff Blum. He's an amazing fly fisherman.
And he's back this year.
Oh gosh, my fly fishermen, my guides have been around for years, but within this industry, what's interesting is not interesting. At some point, they have to get like real jobs, right? Because I'm only open for 3.5 months, and it's a pretty cool job, but it's not like a long-term job. But here's what happens, and you're just looking at Liam. Liam was one of my first guides 11 years ago. He now works for M&R, for Fish and Game, but he took like 2 months off last year. And he said, I want to go back and guide at Hawk because they love it. So I get a lot of guides sort of like on retainer, if you will, along with my regular guides who have been with me for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, where they're like, they're dying to come out. And this is another example where Liam is still working. He's like, Ted, I've got 3 weeks off. Can you tell me when I can come out this summer and guide for you? Right. So they're like my family, which is great. And then, we do a lot of training and whatnot, but they've been great, and they're the backbone because as fly fishermen, you almost always want to have a guide. Most of my spin fishermen don't get guides. And so you get a little extra pampering. They're going to put you on fish, drive the boat, cook a shore lunch. Plus, they're actually just a lot of fun to hang out with.
Well, and they're fishy guys. I mean, when they're not working, they're fishing, right?
No, this is their life.
Right. So I was able, when Jenna and I were there last year, we were able to witness, they would guide us during the day. We would go have our fun at night fishing for walleye, but the guys would go out and they were trying to figure stuff out on Hawk Lake. And what they figured out is that they were able to pattern, target, and successfully catch and release summertime lake trout. And to be able to watch the excitement of these guys trying to figuring it out and coming in, first night, nothing. Second night, they got 1. Third night, they got 4. Like that was like, it was like Christmas.
They're hardcore. I mean, I'll give them that much. It's great. That last year was like the summer of lake trout, and you got some nice electronics on a boat, and immediately, you're looking at arcs 130 feet down, and they're good. So I'm sitting there having a cocktail, and they're out in the middle of the lake, literally in suspended over 400 feet of water, jigging and just crushing these things. It's really cool to watch, and they were pretty successful last year. I was impressed. A little bit jealous too. A little bit jealous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well. That's one of the things that I love about us coming and fishing with you is that you actually get to come and fish with us and stuff like that. So one of the things that you need to be aware of when fishing the summertime at Hawk Lake Lodge is there are fronts that move in. There are post-frontal situations that you need to deal with. If I can get my junk together here, I'm going to show you a unique situation that we came up with. And it relates back to the spring about slowing things down, about post-frontal smallmouth bass.
Note that post-frontal smallmouth bass can be downright grumpy. They can be your absolute nemesis when you're on the water. So what do you do to entice a strike from these downright grumpy fish? Well, what I like to do is, number one, slow things down big time. No matter what fly you decide to throw, slow it down. They're going to be grumpy, they're going to be sulky, they're not going to be aggressive, basically. So what you want to do is be as slow as possible. Now, what I like to do is actually throw a double woolly bugger rig. So on my point fly, the fly that's tied directly to my tippet, I generally like something that's quite large and quite, dramatic. So this is a big black cone-headed woolly bugger. And then what I like to do is attach a smaller, either lightly weighted or non-weighted woolly bugger as a trailer, basically. So what I do is I take my tippet, this is 8-pound tippet, and I tie it right to the bend of the hook. So just use a improved clinch knot, tie it to the hook, and then, this is probably 20 inches of tippet, and then tie your trailer fly or your trailer woolly bugger to that. Now, the key to this rig is the presentation. So that's your rig, basically. So you've got an attractor fly, and you've got one that's small enough morsel that they don't have to work to eat it. They can just suck it up and eat it. So in presentation, you make your cast out. Okay. This is a sink tip line. Let your cast out, let it sink. Now, remember, these are post-frontal grumpy fish, so your retrieve should be super slow. So I'm doing what we affectionately call the Brian Chan or Phil Rowley chironomid crawl with my hand, where you literally just twist the line in slowly, and it literally crawls those woolly buggers along the bottom so they look like leeches or crayfish or whatever these fish are keyed into. Post-frontal fish are grumpy. Slow your presentation down and give the double woolly bugger rig a try. You'll be sure to have great success. Fish.
Oh,
Nice.
wow.
So, good smallie. Oh, there's followers, Jenna. There's followers with
Okay.
it. 3 of them.
Okay, hold on. Oh,
Switch your
shoot.
rig, switch
It's
your
okay.
rig.
I have another fish.
You got one?
Oh, no, it's gone. Okay.
So-
Switch.
So there, I just saw a bass jump out of the water to try to eat that dragonfly. This is super cool. Switch up, Jenna.
Okay.
So we just talked about adjusting your rig. Oh my gosh, these things are so strong. Adjusting your rig based on the conditions. I switched to a double woolly bugger rig, came in near this beaver house, and we've got a giant on here, and it's got followers with it. I actually thought I hooked a log, but it's not. It's a good smallie.
Oh, wow.
What took the top fly? It took the attractor fly, exactly what it's supposed to do. Whoa. It's supposed to do. This is fun. I've got 2 fish on. Can you believe
What?
it?
No.
Another fish took the bottom fly. Yeah, I got 2 fish. And there's followers with it. All right, so I'm gonna get the net out. I'm gonna try to net both of these fish at once.
Need a hand?
Oh, I lost the big one.
Oh.
But that's okay. Got a little one. Never in my career have I ever had 2 fish on one rig. What a thrill. So fun.
How crazy is that, huh?
That was seriously cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we talk about post-frontal fish, and you got to adapt to them, man. Like, you got to slow things down. If you don't slow things down, you're just casting. You might as well not even have a fly on there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fishermen make the same mistake over again, where they fish the same way. You got to read the conditions. It's just like trout fishing, any other species. You got to read the water, read the conditions. And I just learned something new. Grumpy bass. Apparently, that's going to be trending on Twitter.
But, yeah, they're jerks. They're total jerks, man.
They can be kind of jerkish, that's for sure. I do find though, during a cold front, once it's gone through, the next day fishing can kind of suck. But usually the next evening can be like lights out, because at some point they have to eat, and because the front has sort of pushed them off, they haven't eaten for a while. They can come up pretty quick, which is really can be kind of fun.
Yeah, and what's your experience with your fish on the other side of things, as things are coming, from a high pressure system into a low pressure system?
Lights out. Probably some of the best fishing is just before the storm's coming in, and you're going to get electrocuted. It can be just incredible. Pike fishing will go berserk. Walleye, all the fish just go nuts. So if you're into a storm and you're not going to get hurt with lightning and whatnot, like some of my really good fishermen, they'll fish right into that storm because they know it's incredible. That's why you have rain jackets. It's awesome. It can be just some of the best fishing you'll have the entire trip is just before that front rolls in.
We talked about your great guides, and there's a shot of Jeff.
There's Jeff
guiding me. Such a good guy, and he was so humble. At one point he said, "Hey, do you mind if I fish for a little bit?" And I said, "Absolutely not, dude. Please do." And I was fortunate enough to be able to net his personal best 21-inch smallmouth bass. Just a great fish. But if you look at the quality of fish that you have at Hawk Lake, I mean, that's a stud northern all day long.
Yeah. Love it.
Good fish, great fish. And, having the right equipment, the hemos to get them out, and that bite wire is money. It's all about big fish at Hawk Lake Lodge. That's for sure. Now, one of the things that let's go on to Coleman here. What are the best flies for bass to fish in deeper water to search out the entire column? I'll let you go first, Ted.
Oh, hands down, the best fly ever would be a woolly bugger, black, and/or orange, because the orange one is going to be somewhat close to a crayfish. So before you go to a crayfish, right, you can use a black woolly bugger, which is leeches, and then an orange woolly bugger, which is now you're sort of getting into a crayfish thing. The cool thing is you can swim that right through the middle of the water column, or you can bring it all the way down and bounce it along the bottom, which is, jig fishermen know. I mean, that's how they're fishing their jigs, which is just bouncing along the bottom. Lights out. I'd be a woolly bugger, be the best 89 cents you ever spent.
American.
Yeah. Okay. So that's $8 Canadian.
Yeah. So, but the key with fishing deeper water is you need to be able to get down there quickly. And whether you decide to have a full sink line or an extended sinking tip on your floating line or your intermediate line, it depends on how fast you want to get down. But you need to get down and dirty.
Yep.
Best days fishing are right before the storms. When the graphite starts to vibrate, it's time to cast, right? For sure.
Exactly. 5 to 7, yeah. And I tell my guests a lot of time, because you can fish 24 hours a day at Hawk. It's your boat, it's your lake. I say, you're going to come in for breakfast at 7, get up at 5 and go out. Like nobody fishes at 5 in the morning when that sun comes up. Right. You have some of the best hatches. It's incredible fishing. And now, granted, you're fishing another 18 hours after that, so I sort of get it. But you got to try it at least once or twice when you come on up. Get out there early. Take a snooze in the middle of the day if you want to, and then go out in the evening. I mean, you got the killer times on both ends of the spectrum. And the
wonderful thing is that being so far north in Ontario, in sunset country, the sunset doesn't sunset until in June, in middle of June, late June. It doesn't sunset until 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, and it's up at 4, so you've got about 19 hours of daylight. It's insane.
Right.
Yeah, you got to pace yourself.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that we need to really focus on and really understand is that you're great and all, but there's somebody that stands beside you every step of the way. And
my chef.
No, not your chef. Well, yes, your chef, but I have something else in mind.
All right, here we go.
Take a look at this.
That post-frontal smallmouth bass can be...
Never mind. Let's try this again. I'm having issues, guys. I apologize.
That post...
It's not working. Anyway, I wanted to give a shout out to your lovely wife.
Nope, that's not her. Ouch. This is going downhill quick there, buddy.
Sorry, bud. I apologize. There's something going on. The videos that I'm trying to play are not playing the way that they're labeled, so I apologize.
Well, save it for the show. Isn't she on this next show that you guys have?
She is.
I saw a snippet of her, yeah.
Yeah, you can see her on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel. It's a great show encapsulating everything that is Hawk Lake Lodge. And you know what, Ted? I gotta ask you: is there anything that people need to know about booking or how to get in touch with you? The best time to come? Here's your elevator speech, man. What do you get? What do you got?
Everybody's heard the elevator speech. So I'm not going to say that. The bottom line is the fishing is always good throughout the whole summer, depending on, different conditions. You got 19 hours of daylight in June. You got 15 hours in August. You can always find good fishing, absolutely. So, whatever works around your schedule. There's no check-in date. You don't have to come in Saturday, leave on Friday. You can come for 2 days. You can come for 2 weeks. And I've got guests that do both of those, either one. So it doesn't really matter from that standpoint. And the nice thing is, it's all inclusive. You show up with a toothbrush and everything else is included. It's all inclusive American plan, however you want to sort of phrase it. We'll give you a free rod. The spinning rods, St. Croix, or $800 Orvis rods you can use free for the entire trip. We have a full tackle shop, fly shop. You show up with a toothbrush and a Visa card and everything else, open bar, your own private hot tub. And that's kind of nice because, traveling with like rods nowadays can be a little dicey, not to mention there's an upcharge. I got a lot of my guests, they just leave their rods at home. They show up with a little tackle bag and away they go. So I'm not for selling trips. I'm there all summer. We have some of my best friends I've met at the lodge. It's just a blast. It's so much fun. Love to have you. I guarantee you're going to have a good time. Not money back, but I guarantee you'll be great.
What about Martina? Let's talk a little bit about Martina before we go.
So you're talking about my chef, not my wife. Martina is my cordon bleu chef. She actually lives in Honduras and Rotan in the off season. She's great. Oh my gosh, we've had her for 6-7 years, and she's just amazing. And the cool thing is, because she lives like in the Caribbean, she loves sort of seafood type of flair. So she does a lot of fun things with salmon, halibut, walleye. She loves her shrimp and her oysters and that kind of thing. So she's an amazing chef, and I guarantee you're not going to lose any weight. That's for sure. Just look at me. Yeah. It's going to be. It's well worth it though.
Well, I appreciate your time, Ted. Thanks for giving us your Wednesday night. I apologize for the technical difficulties. Country living, man. That's the way it goes. But if you want to have an experience, I've been back to Hawk Lake Lodge 4 times now. If you want to experience, and this cliche gets thrown around a lot, world class. It is truly world-class. Smallmouth bass, northern pike, and world record capable walleye fishing. There's a reason why the Lindners go there. There's a reason why Fishing Canada goes there. It is one of the best sets of lakes in Sunset Country that you could ever imagine.
Lots of fun. Thanks, guys. Tell Colin I said hi. And hopefully I'll see him in June. You guys are going to film another show. So I look forward to seeing you guys again next month.
Fantastic. To see the entire show, check us out on our YouTube channel at The New Fly Fisher on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, 6 a.m. Pacific Time, and then it'll be up there in perpetuity for your viewing pleasure. For everybody here at The New Fly Fisher Live, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next Wednesday with another live show.
Good night.
Good night.